but Black Dragons can definitely turn it on, like Ollie said.
All right, so remains the question of whether or not they have learned from their mistakes, but we're going to be finding that out as we're going to be heading into the first map of this best of 3 series. So Ollie and Parker, please do take it away.
Thank you so very much. We'll get rolling with operator bans. Now, before we start with the actual matchup, we'll let some data come in first. Is this the first time that you and I have ever casted together?
I was thinking about this, I think aside from any sort of scuffed streams that we may have done for qualifiers and things in the past, I think official, yes, 100%.
Yeah, I think so as well. I know that we've been a part of the same like broadcast as in like you've been on the desk or something along those lines, but what an opportunity it has been so far through stage 2. And I mean, there's pros and cons to working from home, but I think it's inarguable that being able to work with people that you don't usually get to work with is kind of a nice part of the job. And I think you're a terrific caster, just as I think Demo, who will be working later today, is also definitely a terrific caster. And I was paid to say that by Demo. Operator bans now. Rolling in Ying and Monty, the 2 most banned operators in terms of attack. Kaid is not exactly the most banned operator, but there is one of the 2 most banned defenders. Everything looking bog standard so far through these 4 ops. Anything out of the ordinary for you for in Oregon?
Nothing particularly. I mean, we're going to really be looking at this Oregon game and thinking and referring back to what happened yesterday, I think, quite often, given that this is a map that was played yesterday by Black Dragons. It was the only map that they were successful in inside of their best of 3. Obviously, we've got previous games in the stage to go off, but really looking at, in a best of 3 environment and what they were able to do very recently. You've got to look at this one and almost question why E1 have brought Black Dragons to this. Have they seen something that's potentially been, a little bit of a key, and we've thought, if we start on defense here, we can really get something rolling.
Those that need a refresher, Black Dragons faced off against Vivo Keydstars yesterday, and they had very different records going into the matchup. Black Dragons were out of their 4 matches were 3-1 on their stage 2 games. Vivo Keydstars the opposite. They went to overtime once where they lost to Team Liquid, 2 regulation losses to W7M and E1, and then beat MIBR. So you would think on paper, okay, Black Dragons are going to breeze through Vivo Keydstars. Well, no, Vivo Keydstars could pull off the upset of the century later today against W7M. As unlikely as that may be, it'll still be an exciting match with the major defending champions in mighty good form. Black Dragons just failed to show up. As you pointed out, Oregon, the only map where they were ultimately successful on. 7-2 for Black Dragons on what was not BD's map. So now they've turned around and picked it because Vivo Keydstars picked it yesterday. But outside of that, Ollie, only 4 rounds in their losses on Cafe and Skyscraper. That is a pretty miserable result for a team at this level, especially when, you're playing 3 maps. 4 rounds in a single map is certainly something, but 4 rounds spread across 2 is, well, you don't gotta be Jesse J. Chick or Jack Fresh Allen with numbers to know that those aren't very good.
I think Misery was the order of the day for both these teams. E1 were only good for 6 against FaZe. So, you really look at it and you think neither of them, well, E1 not even getting a match-winning score between 2 maps is never the best sign. So both have got a lot to prove today. Now, there is the asterisk that this is just a seeding game. So there is a question of how much, players and teams are going to be sort of really invested in this. And as the rounds sort of go on, I think we'll get a bit more of a flavor as to just how much these teams are really wanting to take away something today.
Yeah, I think that's also a very salient point. And not that we're trying to discourage you from watching the broadcast, not that we're trying to discourage you from being excited about this matchup, but this is probably the lowest stakes game that either of the teams are going to play for this entire part of the year. This matchup does not have even close to what just a regular group stage match all the way back at the start of this stage has on the line. So yeah, I mean, these are the matches where we tend to see teams maybe change up roles. Maybe they'll change up their map pool. Maybe they'll conceal some things, because both of these teams will be competing in the LCQs for a spot in Atlanta. You don't want to give away too much too early on. But speaking of early on, round is over. All right. First kill comes in, and then 7 seconds later, all of the remaining kills come on. Black Dragons come out victorious in that first ensuing fight. And boy, what a mess that was.
on the basement as well. And I was looking at the timer when that first kill came in. It was around 1 minute 11 seconds left on the clock, there or thereabouts. Now that's not the worst time for a first kill to come in, but for all of them to come in immediately after, it's a little bit of a problem. You defend in the basement. E1, they were bringing things like Goyo. They were bringing things to sort of delay that time. And Black Dragons, they'd done a great job of setting themselves up there. I think they had that nice crossfire going on. They had the good bit of pressure coming in from those back stairs, and that was a kind of early focus in the round, you know, to remove that barbed wire utility, to free up a little bit of that line of sight and the access through there. So great job from Black Dragons. We always say that teams are expected to win at least the basement site here on Defense of Oregon, and depending on operator bans and current game state, sometimes they're expected to win a little bit more. But with E1 struggling so much there, no real surprise to see them switch things up.
Yeah, I mean, general conventional wisdom would suggest that if you're going to the same bomb site twice, it's because there are micro adjustments that you can make that can ultimately change the results of a round. For example, if you defend laundry and it comes down to a 1v1, you know, maybe the diffuser gets planted, maybe it doesn't. But in all reality, you waste time well, you roam well, you don't have too much that you sacrifice in terms of utility on either offense or defense, depending on which team is on what side of the ball here. And think, okay, a kill or two. Structurally, what we did worked well. We saw some issues with their execute. We can kind of course correct. Let's go back and give it another shot. I mean, that round was just an absolute massacre. So
yeah, you ain't going back there.
Given the state of it, yeah, go somewhere else.
Yeah, you need some time to think. I think you need some time to think about that round and, you know, really put it on the back burner for the time being. Get yourself upstairs, see if there's anything else you can change. Black Dragons, they don't look like they're going to take the foot off the gas here. They're going to be bringing the Amaru. Now, obviously, Amaru speaks of some sort of rush, getting into somewhere very quickly, getting on a rooftop quite quickly as well. However, Live has kept himself alive for the first part of the round, and it's actually going to be Stemp first to fall. Only player on Black Dragons that wasn't rewarded with a kill in the opening round. Playing on the Nook this time, was taken out by Astro.
Big game for Astro is a requirement for E1. A bit sad to see that he's shed the Super Astro title that he used. For those that don't go all the way back, you'll remember, and I'm sure you'll remember this in particular, Ollie. I think it was around the time of the Paris Major. Players, when they were facing elimination games, started to tinker with their names, because when you play on LAN, you have to enter your name every time you logged in. So you'd see like Liven, who played on Millennium at the time, would go Super Liven. Astro would go Super Astro. Canadian, when he was on the ropes in a matchup in EG at the time, would go with Big Bad Nadian in game, for example, when the time gets tough. I always thought it was kind of nice. Astro obviously had changed his name yesterday because of the importance of the matchup of E1. It was all for naught. They lost. Now he's just back to plain old Astro. That's a bit of a womp, 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 womp.
Yeah, is that confidence thing, or is that just like a don't mess around, keep focus on the game? You don't have to always focus on the plant, though, because...
That's a good point.
Look at what Alive is.
He's in the site. And he will come to blows with Astro. Now he gets away, almost gets away. Astro more like Super Astro this time, as it was a 4-2 scoreline, or a 3-2, a 3-0 scoreline. 2 kills came out for E1 in the previous round. Oh, it looked like Black Dragons only got 2 kills, but he's closed that round. But again, very chaotic end to the round. Once the first kill comes in, usually we see the ball get rolling. This time, as you pointed out, E1 broke the ice early on with their roam by back tower, and then it was perpetually a 4v5 favoring E1. All the final kills coming in again within about 3 to 4 seconds of Live dying when he attempted to get the diffuser down inside of dorms. Structurally, I like what Black Dragons tried, but they didn't have the rest of the site locked out to keep Live alive.
I think they were missing Stemp, weren't they? They needed that pressure underneath, and Stemp was going to be that floating pressure wherever it was required. Playing on the Nook, he's got that ability to play from below and to cause a little bit of a chaos. You've got the Dokkaebi calls that are going to give you a bit of information, and it just sort of came a little bit flat when Live used the Amaru to get himself in through big window. It's not really necessary at that point in the round. I'll tell you what, Parker, it's a good job we've got this bird's eye free cam, because we wouldn't be seeing a lot of these kills if we didn't, because of how quickly they're all coming down. You're not switching between POV and POV in that sort of time. We need a good wide angle view of really what's going on here. and E1 getting the job done upstairs. It's going to give him a bit of confidence as well to move back down here to the basement. Now, I'm not sure if the microphone maybe wasn't on or we didn't get audio for when Black Dragons won round 1, but it was significantly louder in that space when E1 won round number 2.
Yeah, I mean, that cam of them celebrating and hearing the audience, albeit it's not a huge audience, it's mostly contained to players who will be competing later on, their family, their friends, etc. Just how is a Brava in a position to die to a shotgun less than 30 seconds into the round? What happened here?
That's a bit of a problem.
A huge problem. No Brava for a basement execute? I mean, you've now thrust more on the shoulders of an operator who usually does it all, which is the Flores, so that's fine. But yeah, you cannot be conceding that first pick so early.
I like the adaptation that E1 have gone for here as well. They've got themselves a little bit further out on their own. Sexy Cake have been able to get that opening pick, and now he's taking himself upstairs into tier 3. He's just causing a problem now that needs to be solved, because if you leave him behind, he's going to come back and flank you at a later point in the round because his team has still got a 4v4 on site. He is the extra man right now, and with that, he can waste quite a good deal of time and maybe even pick himself up a kill while he's sneaking around up there.
Oh, they're going to have to wrestle with these Valkyrie cameras if you're Black Dragons. You got Stemp still alive. Stemp has been far and away the best performer on Black Dragons, and now is dead. No kills so far for Stemp because Sexy Cake, who's been lurking and on that roam roll an awful lot so far this stage, doesn't really get pressured much at the top of back tower. That'll poke a hole in whatever map control Black Dragons bubble thought they had. They're ready for the hatch drop, and it could be quick, either for or against them. It is quick, but maybe not in the direction that they were hoping for. E1 sacrificed Petoxy, but that's literally it. Sacrifice 1 to Petoxy. These rounds are so chaotic, it is very challenging to keep on top of who is actually dying at what point.
Yeah, I mean, we got the opening kill. We got the opening kill there. Yeah. And to be honest, all you needed to know in that round was who died first, because that was the story of the round. Oh, look, Black Dragons lose somebody quite integral to the push and have to really make some significant changes and deal with the roam game. Guess what? They're going to lose the round because they never dealt with Sexy Cake. He did exactly what I said he would. Took himself off into tier 3, into the big tower, was able to pick up another kill onto Stemp, and then his job was done. He's picked up 1 kill, wasted a ton of time, not left his team in a disadvantaged position on site. Great team performance so far from E1. They've certainly bounced back, because I think after round number 1, I was certainly looking at this and thinking, ooh, Black Dragons, they look scary. But obviously, it's a best of 3, not only just this map of Siege, but there are more maps yet to come. Can't be judging too heavily off that first round. Black Dragons now in a position where they're going to start thinking, well, we need to get another round here because we can't let them get a clean sweep of the defensive sites. They've done basement, they've done top floor, now they are looking to do kitchen and meeting.
Yeah, a good solid tertiary bomb site. Every now and then we will see the kitchen into meeting hall, or into dining hall rather, which I know some people refer to as cafeteria. I hear some people refer to it as mess hall as well. Unfortunately, its proximity to small tower, which is going to be a part of the map that, you know, you're going to see Black Dragons likely try to take control of, just to ensure you're flushing out these defenders. It's not exactly as easy to hold as, say, the backstage or back tower portion of the map, which is what adjoins that meeting bomb site. Very early action, again, 30 seconds being the number that we have seen kills come out in rounds 2 and 3. Very narrowly did Astro escape with his life still intact, as the focus so far for Black Dragons heavily aimed at flushing out those 2 split panels into meeting, and now the drones will go to work the back of the map over by stage, so they could very easily pinch this defense of E1.
I've no idea how Astro lived that, by the way. He was on drone, position known, pinched on two sides, and then he gets away, he takes a shot, he runs through his own Kapkan trap, which has been bravaed down the stairs and gets left on like 10, 15 HP. Unfortunate for Black Dragons, but they will clear him up eventually.
Good first
He
pick
is
by
still
Loira.
going to be that first pick.
Oh my, Astro. Both of his kills coming in the previous round. One player that's really stood out for E1. It's not the usual suspects. You know, you look at this team and based on their historical performance, you'd say, okay, well, Lukid, when he was on that Team 1 roster, if I remember correctly, as long as I believe it was Team 1, was excellent. Astro has always been good and has competed for so long for the title of one of the best fraggers in the game, at least in this region. Oh my, there goes Loira, because it's the Sexy Cake show ultimately with E1. It's a full frontal defense now as Yoda is very aggressive. He'll get swung on twice, getting caught on the wall. Missed opportunity. Lukid will be pressured from the back, but has to watch towards stage. And there's the push on in from Split, but don't look down. Toxie dying to the Kapkan traps. This is prolonged action now at this point, Ollie. Both teams just chipping away at each other's defenses and attacks.
Only 30 seconds left. Raps has got himself dug in here. His location now known as he takes ass down. Sexy Cake going to be the next to fall, leaving it 2 versus 2, 3 versus 1 with a downed player already cleared up. Stemp got some work to do in the final 15 seconds of the round. It looks as though he's got a good bit of info. Doesn't have the diffuser. That's going to be cold and really won't matter at this point. Really clutching at straws here, but E1, they are not in a position to peak. They are split up, so they do just need to keep themselves alive. And Raps makes the optimal moment and clears up that final kill.
One of the reasons why I am so looking forward to Atlanta is to hear the crowd, even though I know you as a Brit will probably have some choice words about the caliber of American audiences that we've had as of late, especially the one in Charlotte, where was it Dez and Ian and Fresh to an extent were effectively in the crowd trying to work them and give them good chance. It was like teaching a baby to walk.
The chant game it's so specific, and it really is a part of English culture, I think. And it does stem from football. There is no doubt, but you've got to come up with, the let's go is just, we're going to hear some let's goes at Charlotte. Not Charlotte. We heard let's goes at Charlotte. We're going to hear let's goes at Atlanta. And I'll be honest, Parker, I'm not looking forward to that. I want to hear something fresh.
Well, I mean, you'll be hearing Fresh when he's on the desk, providing that he is one of the talent who goes to Atlanta. There was a tweet I saw a long time ago that really struck at me. And I've pulled it up just for this particular moment, Ollie. If you humor me for a second here. It says, American sports fans, defense, defense, defense. British sports fans. All right, lads, I've just worked up a song to the tune of Claire de Lune about an opposing player's drunk driving charge. I'll count us off. And I think it is entirely accurate. The speed at which you were able to come up with these kinds of quips, the wit shown off by the British fans. I hope for as many years as Rainbow Six has left, that we absolutely need a major in either the UK or Australia. I will take either, though I would love to go to the UK for it, and I'm sure much of the EU talent would be excited, as about half of them are British. Because with all the trash talking that you Brits have done, I need to experience the actual crowd itself in your country.
It'd have to be good as well, wouldn't it? I think we'd have to get in some extras. We'd have to go down to some local football clubs and just get them all in a room, give them a brief, tell them what's going on, and get them in to actually come up with some tunes just so we didn't lose.
Talking about good
then the pressure will be on.
I mean, you're hard pressed to think of a louder crowd than that Rio contingent that we had. As far as I remember, it was a number of, I think there was over 10,000 people there the last time that we went to Brazil. Now, we were supposed to go to Brazil in 2020 for the May finals, but there was a global pandemic or something like that that got in the way. I can't quite remember. Now we get to go back for SI, and I am very excited to go to a warm climate in February instead of the frigid Arctic tundra that is Montreal. And even though I won't be able to understand most of what they're saying, it'll be great to hear the Brazilian crowd chant, because my first live event ever was in Sao Paulo, and I will never forget the moment of being in the casting booth right before the event started, right before the host was set to take the stage. The crowd just started chanting. At that time, we didn't have the benefit of large groups. I think there's only maybe 1,000 people there. But, oh boy, the electricity. Speaking of electricity, these two teams, very early action that resulted in a singular kill that is now swung back with E1 at a disadvantage in terms of numbers.
Losing Astro and Lucid. Astro first on that first blood again, so not the greatest start necessarily for him. That's 2 rounds in a row. You'd want to really try and get a handle on that. Can be one of the players that, whilst is incredibly talented, just tends to find himself in a little bit of bother occasionally. Maybe could be charged with just trying a little bit too hard to make things happen, especially when Black Dragons have seemed to adapt quite well to the pacing of these rounds now, albeit they are sitting at 2 rounds down. They're making good progress here.
I mean, you just can't get bogged down at this point. Have the advantage, but you're going to have to run through 2 more gas canisters with 45 seconds on the clock. You've got the DMR in the hands of Dodez, which is a very powerful gun. And then the one real question mark is, where are these dread mines? Sexy Cake showing that there's still 3 left on the board. A nearsightedness takes a second or 2 before it comes into effect. Player is prepared and ready for the swing. Black Dragon's coming out on top. Sexy Cake will need to clutch out. This is a very familiar spot for him, but he just can't outdo a live inside of Attic. I don't know if he was swinging for kills or if he was swinging for intel, but it was a swing and a miss. And as good as Sexy Cake has been, you can't win them all. Black Dragons used their timeout in the previous round. They settled themselves down. I'd like to remind everybody that this is their map, and they have already technically, quote unquote, lost the first half by surrendering 3 rounds to E1. So the best that they will be able to pull off is going to be a draw, which I guess on Oregon, picking up 3 rounds is not terrible.
It's not terrible. And if we look at what was spoken about on the desk, Red CDAP's bringing up the old attacker percentage win rate for E1. They were dreadful yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
They dropped 10% on the stage just yesterday. They're sitting now at a very dismal 36% attacking win rate, which, if you're Black Dragons and you're looking at coming out of this at 3-3, you can maybe forgive yourself for a couple of the mistakes maybe you made in the opening couple of rounds and think to yourself, we've probably got this in the second half, because we know that E1 are really in a bad place with their attacks at the moment.
I will also say that the one big caveat to all of the analysis work that we're going to do through this entire broadcast is that this is a seeding match that is of not the most importance for these teams, but it is game day reps, right? And that's something that comes up in conversation, at least on most of the casts that I work, for newer teams or teams that are still adapting to new players or role changes, etc., getting familiar with themselves, in which I would consider E1 to be that team. I would consider Black Dragons the same, but to a lesser extent. You cannot use scrims as a substitute for proper game day reps.
Tô durando tudo aqui até o jantar é meu. Até o jantar é meu já.
Só recado freezer, né?
Depois a gente vai
Yeah,
ter
neither
o
of
quarto
these
vai ter
two
multi
teams
passa
are,
pro switch aqui.
you know,
Não, passei já
particularly
durante
long standing at the moment. I think that's the sort of key takeaway there.
Tudo nosso, tudo nosso.
Sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Oh, does that go out to everybody?
I imagine so.
Brilliant. Well, I apologize for talking over it. I'm sure everyone was understanding what was going on.
I will say that is the very first time I've casted every single Brazil Playday so far. And I will tell you that I have never, that's the first time that's shown up on the broadcast. So I don't know if it shows up on the actual stream, but it was certainly in our ears, wasn't it?
I thought that was just something that we had to sort of deal with and was muted to everybody else.
I don't know if you've ever heard this story, but going back to that very first LAN in Sao Paulo, we didn't have a mute box, so we had no way to mute ourselves once we went live, and we didn't have a talkback box, Pix and I. And right as the event started, they go to throw to us, and all we can hear in our ears are Melly and Ratalia like blasted at inhuman levels, saying, like, just speaking in Portuguese like normal, but at a decibel level that's enough to deafen most mortal beings. Imagine being on hard cam with no cough button, no talkback button, and all you can hear in your ears are the two Brazilian casters speaking Portuguese next to you. It was impossible for us to hear. That was a nice little throwback. Now, as we transition over towards the execute, started off well for E1. Black Dragons seemingly catching themselves. Now, they've been reduced to just live. 1v3. They'll hunt down the Capitao for the final kill. Oh, what do they call that? A fan of lucky number 11, you'll call that the Kansas City Shuffle. It's where they look left, but you're to the right. He did look to the left. There were players on either side of the wall. He was going down no matter what. E1 recover gracefully, take the first half 4-2.
I think it's a shame for Black Dragons to almost try and throw that last round. Well, they did kind of throw that last round away in a bit of a blitz rush. That just didn't seem to be something that would really fly against E1. The way that they won the first round was they set up a really nice execute with a good crossfire. They had presence in kitchen, and then that was freezer, and that was something that they were able to really exploit. Every time that they've then tried to attack into that same site, they've not won that gunfight inside of freezer. Stump's been taken out there, and that's been one of the big problems. Not really sure the Blitz Capitao was the optimal combination there. And for as bad as E1 have been on their attacks, you look at this and think, 4-2 split, it's kind of what you expect a decent team to get away with on Oregon on the defense. This really ought to be theirs for the taking now. Black Dragons have got some hard yards to do to try and catch up here, and they're going to start us off by going downstairs.
Yeah, they brought an Ela shotgun to boot, which is not outside of the norm. Shotgun's getting a huge buff for the most part over the most recent changes, though it doesn't really seem to move the needle on a lot of operator loadouts. We do see more M870s, which is the pump shotgun that is brought by Thorn, Jaeger, and Bandit. You see it on Jaeger and Bandit every now and then, though I think the 1.5 is just a bit too strong at the moment, and it's in a position where you can't forego it if you're playing on Thorn, so she tends to run that, is it a mini Uzi or whatever variant technically it is? I'm not a gun guy. As for Ela, that Ela shotgun has always been an absolute menace, especially if you're going to be playing over by Pillar, which is where most Elas tend to play. I imagine that'll be the domain for Ask. You've got observation blockers to keep Ela a little bit safe. It sounds like we're going to have another listening. Never mind.
I think we've got a quick listening, so I think we're expecting some action here. The Sexy Cake charges his way down these freezer stairs, but it's all kind of fallen a little bit flat. We've had a bit of utility exchanged, but Black Dragons did a great job there of getting themselves a little bit further tucked back. I say that, Dudez. The fantastic nade coming through. I wasn't sure they had anything left to throw at him there. They have managed to pick up first kill.
Well, it goes right back with Patoxy. Defender's doing all right for the time being. Rarity is that Astro is going to be playing on the F2. Now, this is a gun that used to be so potent at one time, but the recoil changes being what they have been have forced the 417 to be the meta for most Twitch operators. That's the gun that Lukid is using on Lion. DMRs, especially on LAN, which is where the Brazilian region plays, means that those DMRs are going to hit you like an absolute truck. But the F2, absolute bullet hose, will typically do well. Lukid trades back Patoxy, the only player from Black Dragons to have gotten on the board, and what was certainly shaping up for a quick round has cooled off a little bit.
I kind of wish we got to hear what they're saying in the timeout now.
Me too.
We could have had the timeout going on in the background of all this.
Yeah.
We're going to see Sexy Cake hack the old cameras now on the Dokkaebi. See if there's any information there to be gleaned. Obviously, we know that there could only be a bulletproof left at this point. There's still a bit of a job to do here. You guys? Going to kick things off by taking down Stemp, further diminishing these Black Dragons numbers and giving no option again here for a trade. Very tough situation now to be in, fighting down that long corridor as A lot of pressure for Ask and his pistol. Of course, he does have the shotgun, but not going to be all too useful, especially when his location is known like this. Can he pick himself up at least an exit here potentially? We'll find one. 20 seconds left. Diffuser is going to be cold and recovered by Lukid, but Ask, surely not. Finds another down, eventually taken out by Sexy Cake. I don't care who wins this game, but I'm so glad that E1 didn't lose that round, because if Ask could have won that, that would have just been unforgivable.
Yeah. Oh my. It wouldn't be the first time that we've seen somebody with a shotgun at close range pull off a couple kills. I mean, usually it happens with a smoke or a sledge. The smoke in particular, typically that operator that'll get the job done, but a couple kills with the LS shotgun, pull out that pistol. It's got the red dot sight on it. You can absolutely win a 1vx in that position, though most 1vx's, in order to win that, rely on your opponent committing some mistakes. Good news for E1 fans is they didn't really commit mistakes and pushed Ask in synchronization after giving up that kill in Freezer and win the round because of it. Now, same logic might apply here, as it's an immediate hop up to dorms for this Black Dragons team. They lost Laundry in a hurry. It was a 4v1 favoring E1 before Ask got the Freezer pick. All things considered, I think you approach it as in a, hey, a 4v1 is bad. That's mentally where I'm going to stand when we lose the round. Let's go somewhere else. Oregon's an AB type map. Laundry and dorms are interchangeable to a lot of teams, and though Laundry does get the slight edge in terms of defender prowess for a lot of these squads, dorms is not an abnormality, and if played well, can be just as favored for you as a defender.
Absolutely. And the idea is you've got to win at least both of them anyway. So you really can't be sort of limiting yourself in that sort of a way. And again, Black Dragons feeling very similarly to the way that E1 did at the start of their defensive phase. It wasn't even close. Let's just reset. Let's go somewhere else and see if we can find our fortune elsewhere. 5-2 as the score. It starts to get into a position where you really got to start doing something now as Black Dragons. You don't want to give E1 that opportunity of a map point. I'd like to see Black Dragons just taking a little bit more time in these gunfights and not throwing themselves head first and really giving themselves up. Stem, what a great shot over onto Astro. Able to pick up the opener this time in Black Dragon's favor.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you don't want to go 3-7 as Stemp, but it's been a bit of a lackluster performance on his end. Same with all of Black Dragons. Right now on their map, we're basically seeing the same thing that happened to them yesterday in the Vivo Keydstars game, where they have the advantage of picking a favorable map to themselves, but then they just... there's a lot of different metaphors you can take here. They take their foot off the gas, you know, they're playing catch up, they, you know, had the wind knocked out of them, etc. Losing Astro, though, as your ace is particularly bad, but as you can see, Raps still has plenty of hard destruction left. Way that you want to approach this Dorm's bomb site. Bonham might be okay on her own, but clearly the double hard breach leads to E1 either wanting that insurance policy or having other ideas about a typical standard take where your hard breach would go onto the back of attic wall and then into closet to open up games.
Ask gets a bit unfortunate there. That nade was not meant for him. Doesn't matter though, as the kills continue to fly. Lukid now left as the sole survivor for E1. Recognizing that, probably needs to go downstairs. Potentially knows there's a kill to finish off here. Although maybe not. Ask could provide this intel. I don't know if I would have ran to the place that everybody else on your team died as well, but that's what Luka chose to do. And he was taken down there by Stemp, who at the start of this round wasn't doing too great. At the end, he's picked himself up 3 kills.
Yeah. A good round for Black Dragons and one that they needed. They won that Dorm's bomb site, and again, just lends some credibility to what every single caster will tell you about the way that the rotation of this map goes. There'll be another laundry take now for E1, as that's where Black Dragons go on defense. The way that this bomb site is shaken out, this will be the 5th time that we see that basement bomb site. Black Dragons have only won it a single time. E1 might have lost it in round number 1, but then prevailed the next 2 times they went to it on defense, and then were ultimately successful the 1 time they played it on attack. It's punctuated in a lot of ways, I think, by how quick E1 can be. As you saw in the first half, both of these teams have a level of speed that is not abnormal, but is certainly quicker than the pacing of most of Stage 2 here in Brazil. Brazil, I would argue, with the exception of a couple teams, is a much faster region than, one of the other region that I cover all the time, which is North America. A lot of North American teams far more sluggish. Brazilian players have always been, in a lot of ways, I would argue, more mechanically talented than a lot of other regions. And because of that, they're able to be aggressive, be very overwhelming, trample you, just run roughshod over your defenses. And as for this defense, I don't know if you saw this, but with all those observation blockers going and the players upstairs, this is a very aggressive top floor hold for Black Dragons.
Black Dragons need to be careful that E1 don't read into this and just hit the site. Because I feel like if E1 read into this well and hit the site correctly, there's a chance that they find it a little bit light here. Black Dragons have, as you mentioned, gone for that extended roam, the observation blockers, a lot of players here off-site, really looking to waste a bit of time and pick themselves up a kill or 2 before they ultimately fall off. Do you believe that the meeting hatch is reinforced? So you're not necessarily going to get that easy access back into the site, so you are likely going to be playing there for your life, but that shouldn't concern them too much. Stemp, he's going to be the one playing. No, the meeting hatch is in fact open, so he will play here for as long as possible.
Like, I shamed Stemp, and then as you pointed out, 3 kills right after. It's like the inverse of the caster curse, but it's too much for Stemp now. The fadeaway nitro cell going up the hatch explodes a bit too prematurely. Loira has the hatch the opposite way. If Stemp disappears down below, that's Loira playing from above. If Raps doesn't see this, the Solus might be able to get a pick, but pressured from Attic as that's now open. Sledge creeping ever closer. And Lukid has now pushed Loira off of that spot. You'll have to go back and drone it out again. You've got good map control from not even taking an engagement.
There's great levels to this Black Dragon defense, because now you're looking at it and you're thinking, well, Loira, where is he? We know that there was somebody inside of Attic, but we've lost them, and we can't afford to go chasing them one-on-one. 3 players here for Black Dragons dug into the site. Ask returning down those laundry stairs to make it 4. Less than a minute left. Still 10 players alive. And more importantly, Loira off on the roam. 2 hatches open. Great access for a little bit of a backstab here as the push comes in.
Nice first pick from the defense. And oh my God! Flawlessly done by Black Dragons. I almost at a loss for words. This has been an extremely unpredictable matchup. So back and forth. Different pacing across the board. Fast in the first half. Cooling off a little bit in the second half. But those last 2 rounds, Black Dragons looking so formidable on defense. Now they've won dorms and they successfully tackle laundry supply. The question becomes, tertiary bomb site, is it meeting that you go to, or is it the dining hall bomb site? Furthermore, how are you going to go about doing this? This is the map. This is a map where usually you expect that tertiary bomb site to go in favor of the attackers. If that's the case, E1 moves to match point, and then the more favorable sites start unlocking for Black Dragons. As we can see from this free cam, which you praised the work of not too long ago, it will be a meeting hold for Black Dragons. So far, the same 3 bomb sites have been played back to back to back. I don't know with the way this is going if we're even going to see that dining bomb site show up.
What's your thought on the free cam, Parker?
I like it. I think that I think it can really elevate the setups, and I think it can give you a good look at the way things are going. There have been times where we get a bird's eye view of a bomb site, but then because you can't rotate the cam, there would be times where, say, like a Valkyrie camera was thrown, or there would be, holes through a floor or a roof that you can't exactly capture properly with the way that the cam was set up. I like the way that it's being used. I think since it is so new, it's going to take a little bit of time for the observers to get the full potential out of it, but they very quickly learned how to use it to, emphasize certain parts of a broadcast. The only real knock I have against it is that there are times where textures just don't load in, and that's just more on the engine than anything. You'll go to free cam on Bank when I was casting with Harry the other day, and then there's the entire top floor of Bank disappears. It's a bit jarring to look at. But other than that, I think it's excellent. What do you think?
I like it. I think it takes a little bit of getting used to, because we're obviously so used to looking for where the information is.
Yeah.
It's different to now look and to have it presented in a different way. So it definitely takes a little bit more getting used to when you're actually watching the action unfold. But I do quite like it. I think it's good for showing, if a team is honing in on a certain area or not. And when you can get that sort of stack up of players and the defender that is ultimately going to get pushed eventually, that's I kind of like it like that.
Like I said, it's really elevated the broadcast in a lot of ways, but it's one of those things where Rainbow Six is such a deeply complex game that our esport is, I don't want to say hindered, but is not exactly aided by the spectating system. There's a lot that gets missed. I think free cam will fix some of those issues, right? And by allowing us to see better setups, see action in a different way, I think it will only help. A game that is notoriously hard to watch and is even harder. And genuinely, we have very talented observers who make the best of it. I think free cam will just aid that. First blows, by the way. E1 with the advantage. So now we get into the final moment of the round. Loira aggressive up top. Down goes Sexy Cake to Stem. But Loira is simply out-dueled by the sidearm of Astro. Stem backed off. Over by Split. Down goes Patoxy. 1 kill remains for E1 to move to match point. Stem could be working some magic here. Yoda is only on a single point of HP too. This is very, very winnable. Stem tie the game. Let's get the kill. E1 go to match point. Sorry for talking so much.
Enjoy. I'm enjoying being back in Brazil, honestly.
It's good to have you back.
Seeing it,
that's all.
seeing
I
all
care
the
about.
names, seeing all the players, seeing all the names. Because obviously, when I was at Copenhagen, for example, you see an amount of the Brazilian teams and players, right? But you don't get to see everybody. And especially with all the changes and everything that's gone on since the sort of last time, it just makes it so exciting to see the, there's teams that, you look at E1 and you think, oh, it's like, there's a bit of MIBR in there, there's a bit of FaZe in there, there's a bit of Old Liquid in there, there's players that have got so much pedigree in them. And then you get people coming up like Stemp, who out of nowhere are now putting up those big numbers. Unfortunately for him, as you've mentioned a couple of times, he hasn't had the greatest game. I honestly was thinking he might do it there inside of the kitchen. I was thinking there's definitely a chance. He's got that MP7, fantastic gun, great in those close quarters. But E1, too good in the clutches, too good in the teamwork as well, which has kind of been a running theme throughout the day in those attacking pushes that they've started to develop. Haven't done too terribly at all on the attacks here we've seen on Oregon. And as you mentioned now, they've got themselves on a map point.
Not their map either. I will say, in my defense, when we were talking about why we thought certain teams were going to win, I said I thought E1 had the advantage because just on paper they were a better team. And I said I don't care about the maps. And E1 is winning against Black Dragons on Black Dragon's map. And I was right.
Does that make you happy?
It's me clapping for myself.
Yeah, I thought it might be.
Yesterday, I don't know if you watched the broadcast, but I tried to do some of the Discord soundboard effects, like the duck quacking when Emmy and I were talking about ducks and Tomahawk cruise missiles. But unfortunately, with the setup that we have, the Discord soundboard doesn't come through on the show. So as much as I'd love to do the clapping one, doesn't exactly work out. E1, who are on the cusp of snaking Black Dragon's map away from them, I've got the very first pick. Down goes live. E1 only 4 kills away from stunning us on a map that they probably weren't supposed to win.
I don't know if I think that's more fortunate that the soundboard doesn't come through the broadcast. Probably a good thing. And I did watch yesterday as well. And I
wasn't trying to like expose you for you to be like, I wasn't watching.
No, I enjoyed it.
I wasn't trying to do that. I'm sorry.
Amy did send me a message saying that something about a duck and a tomahawk. So,
well, we kept.
I'm not sure. I think that's probably a little inside joke from yesterday.
I just came about out of nowhere, as did that nade. Like Black Dragons, really sticking it though. A lot of gumption. They got some real pep in their step here, Oliver. And Patoxy could get 2 kills. That DMR, or a peek in the doorway. Uh-oh. You didn't drone him out. Now it's time to swing. Patoxy wins them both. His teammate was down. That was a 1v1 for the map. 5th round will now go on the board for Black Dragons, and we go all 12 to see what happens. I think we're going overtime.
There's a possibility, isn't there?
Mm-hmm.
I think to coin one of your phrases, would you feel it appropriate to say that we have a ball game going?
I think we do have a ball game. Yeah.
I love that one.
We've got ourselves a ball game here. Or, obviously Tim has the, we're going all the way, guys.
I love how everybody sounds exactly the same when they try and do that, but no one sounds like Tim.
Well, it's impossible to sound like him. He's got a hard work.
No, but you sound exactly the same as everyone else that tries to say it, or it's like everyone says it in a certain way. I think it's brilliant. I think based on this site choice, there's a very good chance we could go to overtime.
I definitely agree. I mean, the last time that Laundry was played, it was won flawlessly by Black Dragons on defense. So that, if anything, should give you a pretty good idea of where this one lays or lies. Really depends on how you want to approach that word, I suppose. Laundry, though, has been I don't want to say a coin toss bomb site, but I mean, it's been won by the attackers twice of the 5 times it was played. So it is not as dominant for the defense as we're used to seeing. This whole match has been unpredictable. Both of these teams yesterday did not play up to their standards, as we talked about. And when you're not playing your own game, or, we've watched 4 or 5 maps of both of these teams, and then suddenly they just play completely different styles of Siege, and they, the usual suspects don't do the things that the usual suspects ought to do. You kind of scratch your head and go, okay. And I mean, I approached this round exactly the same. Blitz on the board is going to be the big question mark for me. Does Sexy Cake actually prevail on this role? Does he get the support around him for the Blitz to actually pay off?
Last time when Black Dragons defended, they took observation blockers, they extended and roamed quite heavily. And I think that E1 have sort of read into that and gone, that's what we're going to try and target. We're going to try and use the Blitz to make our way into site quite quickly, or use the Blitz as an effective roam clearing tool. This time, Black Dragons, they haven't gone for that roam. The site is stacked, and you've got the Blitz. So now you've just got to work through the players on the site. It's kind of the worst situation to be, because you can't use the Blitz for the quick rush with an advantage in numbers. You've got to make that advantage yourself, and you can't use that Blitz to roam clear because there's no roamers. So Sexy Cake is kind of left a little bit wanting at the moment. Its time will come in the round, but it just isn't now.
It's very easy for us to finger point at Shields as well. When a Monty is banned, a Blitz is still a strong operator, but obviously will be played in very different ways. We've been talking about individual players, but it's Patoxy and Dodez leading the way on their respective teams. These are not players who are usually at the top of the score sheet. Seeing them there is a bit of a surprise, but honestly a nice surprise, as we witness what is the slowest round in terms of time management. But as we know, between these two teams, it can be over in the blink of an eye.
Sexycake's time is ticking, and it's certainly coming toward that moment when the blitz will be very impactful. He's going to try and push through and delete the Fenrir inside of Elbow. Does put a good couple of points of damage, but it's his teammates that will be doing the rest of that damage, taking as Black Dragons rinse through, and Lukid drops Electrical Hatch into the Viper's net. He had no chance there. Flawless for Black Dragons to confirm that we are going to overtime.
Back-to-back flawless defenses of this bomb site. That is a tough nut to crack. You know, I gotta say it. E1 are no doubt a talented team, but Black Dragons made them look like chumps on both of those defenses. Excellently played by Black Dragons. With the way they held map control on that first floor, very good. They read into the blitz. I think that was a bit of sloppiness from Sexycake, but you know what can you say? We can go back and look at it, and again, it's very easy to kind of condemn the shields for the way that they're played. It looks like there was a timeout called as well by E1, so I mean, a hell of a time for them to call it as you now go into overtime. Black Dragons will ride out to pick up. Same could be said for E1 here, where you know, you're going to run the blitz. All right, perfect. But you have to play around the way that Sexycake will use that blitz. Almost certainly the blitz is going to come rushing at you through blue. You have to be prepared for that. A lot of teams are. You've got a Warden there to pick away at his feet if he's running. You got a smoke to gas him and then pull out the shotgun and maybe just hope you get lucky on one of those shots. Because if the blitz drops his shield to ADS, well, then you've got a huge target to hit. And a pistol, unless you're hitting the head, doesn't do a terrible amount of damage, especially when compared to a shotgun. Right now, no repicks coming in from E1. They seem to like this lineup. I like the Capitao pick over Blitz a lot here.
I think Capitao's in a much better place to flush those defenders out, right? You can use the fire arrows, the asphyxiation to really push people into awkward spots to clear area. You've got the smokes as well. I don't think we're going to look at really getting the plant down in this game. We've seen, I think, one intention of getting the diffuser down in round number 2 from live, and that was it. So I don't really think that we're going to find ourselves in a real plant-based game of Siege, but the smoke still for cutting off that line of sight is going to be important. And yeah, like you say, much better than the Blitz. I think it's just so easy to criticize any shield player because it's so clear when they haven't got the support. Yeah. That's when you can question the play, because it's so easy to see a Blitz on their own or a Monty on their own without anyone near it, whereas someone might fluff a nade and it's not as easy to catch that. And, you know, you don't really come down on it with the same level of criticism.
No, absolutely. Dotez is dead, by the way, with the lobby resetting. You lose the fact that Dotez was on, I believe it was 14 kills, but we'd have to get absolute hard confirmation. I know it was above 12, that's for certain. Toxie was the top kill getter for Black Dragons. Lyra removed, Dotez traded right back. You've got a set of backup nades. The one thing that you're going to miss from the Yana is just, honestly, good gun skill from the player that died, and then the ability to gain information. I praise the Capitao pick. You've already used half of the utility, one fire arrow, one smoke arrow, both dropping at the bottom of Laundry, but it doesn't seem like there's a lot of follow-up. Might actually not have been a fire arrow, by the way. That might have been one of smokes, one of the smokes from Astro, and then a Goyo canister, but hard to tell unless you actually see it go off. And right now, Capitao is actually bugged, where, see, look at that. A fire arrow was used and it went back up to 2 for a second. Things are going to come in very quickly here, Ollie.
Stemp. He's going to be finding himself in that action again. Lukid, Sexycake, they're trying to push their way through. They're coming up against quite a lot of resistance. Look at Stemp's positioning here. He's got the DMR on the long angle with that deployable shield and a little bit of information. He doesn't need to move, and Astro is trying to bait him into this engagement. But Stemp knows better than that. He has a great little pixel that he can try and make use of. Astro has the kit, but it's no good in the freezer live. Starting to think about a bit of pressure from elsewhere as well. So with Astro pinched, got to look toward Lukid and say, you need to try and free up this teammate. Astro finds one, Lukid a second, eventually flushing Stemp out and leaving Ask in the 1v1. Dropped the diffuser cold on the ground, and Lukid Going for that large rotation. He has the time to do this and get himself into the freezer. It looks as though Astro has the heads up. He's got the live ping information. It's about making himself an alternate route, but what a great clutch to finish things off.
The smirk on the face of Ask. He's at a disappointing stage in terms of results, but can still turn it on when need be, and this match is nothing different. We've seen some incredibly impactful kills from Ask, and it's helped keep his team in round after round after round. And if you're not having the usual suspects show up, which again was kind of the issue yesterday, and honestly is repeating it today too, Stemp and Live have not been the terrific players of this matchup. Ask has had a number of rounds where he has excelled, and then obviously Patoxy's been phenomenal. Yeah. Ask in this position, knew he was in freezer. That Vector's a bullet hose. It's going to just chew right through its opposition. If you can control the recoil, you'll be rewarded, and that's exactly what happened, as reductive as it might sound. You know what a fascinating thing is about this matchup, Ollie? Black Dragons have only led one time, and it was all the way back in round number 1. Since then, it's been either E1 with the lead, or they've been tied, and then E1 has regained the lead again. Now, Black Dragons pick up only their second lead of the match, and it couldn't come at a better time.
I mean, they're just going with the mindset of you only need to lead at the end, right? It doesn't matter if you lead all game, you just need to lead at the end.
The only time that you lead can be that 15th round, right? You could be trailing or tied the entire time, and it doesn't matter. A win's a win. Though it is nice that if Black Dragons do win, they let E1 keep it warm for them.
It's kind of sad that that last round came down to a bulletproof. There was a bulletproof in the freezer. We got to see it in the replay. We could see all the players on the side of Black Dragons on that bulletproof camera feeding that information for Ask. Obviously, we were in the split view at the time, so it was a bit tense, and we couldn't really see what the other team were doing, what the teammates were doing for Ask to give him that info. We see the red pings come through, but E1, you're going to be kicking yourself over that. You can't be letting the bulletproof cause that many problems, especially when it's a sledge in the clutch. Like, get rid of the bulletproof, hello. I mean, it's beside the point. It's just something that caught my eye inside of the replay. I'm sure they won't be worrying about it too much now, as E1 are in a must-win situation if they want to take map number 1.
I will say one thing that it takes some getting used to about the free cam is how it's not perfectly like straight when they go from above. Like they'll go above and then they'll kind of turn it just the map a little bit, and it'll look askew. And then my reptilian brain is not used to that, because you know it used to be you could only turn the map in like 90-degree increments.
Yeah,
not the case any longer, which is good. But my brain is like, that's abnormal, so that's bad.
Because you've watched thousands of hours of Siege with maps turned in 90 degrees. That's the problem.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's just old habits dying hard. I do wonder, as was discussed yesterday with Emmy, I said I've probably casted close to 1,000 maps of Rainbow Six Siege, if not more than that. I'd actually love there to be a counter as to how many maps I've casted. That'd be fun. I'm never going to go through and do that math myself. But... oh,
gotta get you 10,000 hours in, right?
It's possible. You know, that's what you need for expertise, right? E1 striking back, looking for a round to propel us to all 15, or else they go out in the wrong direction on Black Dragon's map, and suddenly Ask has 5 kills since the rehost. Blue control very firmly for Black Dragons. It's forced the last 2 E1 players, a mirror and a smoke, both anchor operators with tools at their disposal, usually, but no gas canisters, no C4. Sexy Cake pushed out of position, now over towards elbow as the advance continues from Black Dragons. Live goes down, it's equal numbers. Ask might want to get the diffuser down. Toys with Sexy Cake Patoxy to save the round. A swung on by a shotgun wrap spins it. E1 push us all the way.
You gotta watch that and think, like, do Black Dragons even want it? Like, how are they losing that situation? We've just praised Ask for all the work he did in the previous round. He picked up a fantastic clutch, kept a level head, used the information that his team got, and really played for the win. And then you just find him in the middle of sight with the diffuser, just looking left and right. Like, hello. Oh, frustration. Frustration, certainly. 7-7 here. By the way, 5th place LCQ seeding game. Not the greatest stakes of the day, and already a maximum overtime in map number 1.
And not to diminish the excitement that this match is giving to the people watching, but all that's at stake here is an LCQ seeding position. That's it. It's not, they're not fighting for a spot at the major. They're not fighting to finish at the top of the stage. Those things are already out of reach for them. This is really just for posterity and for the slight advantage that being higher seeded brings for you, which I'd imagine most teams would tell you is relatively small potatoes. That joke might not... Mo might not understand that joke because it involves potatoes, but... or maybe he understands the reference more because
maybe
it
he gets
potatoes.
it. Yeah.
I don't know.
I think there's probably nothing worse than a small potato, right? In terms of potatoes.
Yeah, I think that's yeah. Not really too much potatoes. Not really a bad thing ever. See, look at this. Tell me this doesn't look odd.
Yeah, it does look a little bit... It doesn't look odd. It's just an unusual angle, right? It's not one that we're used to seeing. But I think that's why I like it.
These swooping effects. I believe Brazil has 2 observers, which again is brought upon by it being on LAN. Back when NAL was played on LAN out of Vegas, we had 2 observers more frequently than not. In Ty and Cyano. And that just gives you better perspective. You can have a persistent top-down. The 2 observers get to work together. It's excellent. But I know that there are a set number of observer slots when you're playing online versus on LAN. Full round.
Had a bit of trigger discipline from Astro, or can he not actually see that person?
I don't think he can see him. The silhouettes are sometimes a bit confusing, especially when, you know, you might be looking at a wall that can be shot through. Some of the times it's a hard wall and there's nothing you can do. I think it's just the silhouettes playing mind games with us.
Both these teams are playing mind games with one another. Very slow round. You can tell the stakes here. Both teams really wanting to come away with this first map in the book. Only now we're starting to see a bit of action. It's going to be Stem to open the account here onto Dudez. That push through the attic is going to be unsuccessful, and it's going to leave quite a big gaping hole here. E1 may need to go and send somebody through to fill that, and it looks as though Sexy Cake might be given that task.
Oh, I mean, it would be a terrible time for Sexy Cake to have one of his worst performances of the stage. Now it'll come a duel that he ends up winning. Down goes Stemp. Usually that would be such a profile kill. Black Dragons coming out ahead in this duel. Numbers now equalized. Everybody's still upright. So the 2v2 is genuine, but oh my, it's a Frost match to give Black Dragons the win.